Welcome back to Stauffer Garage, guys. Today's episode is of a Chevy Aveo that has seen better days on the inside of this vehicle. It was used to haul around several children, but also the owner used it to deliver pizzas for quite a long period of time, which resulted in an interior that is definitely in need of a deep cleaning, as you guys can tell from all of these before shots. If you guys are new and you do enjoy these sort of details, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because these are the details that you will see on this channel every single week. And I want you guys to comment below, how long have you been watching Stauffer Garage, and when did you guys subscribe to this channel? Now, to begin this detail, I'm actually starting off by rolling the car outside to spray and rinse off all of the door jambs around the doors, around the door sills, and also the gas cap and the trunk lid. The reason being is these areas collect a lot of dust and dirt, but also since we're only doing an interior wash, if you open a door and you see the interior is nice but the door jambs are dirty, it just doesn't give it that full, complete detail look. So just by doing a simple spray down, it makes the cleaning process of those door jambs wipe down that much easier. Some of you might be worried about overspray or getting the interior wet, but since everything is going to get wiped down, everything is going to get pulled out and extracted from the cloth side, it doesn't matter if a little water splashes in, which honestly, it's fairly minimal. Now the next step for me is to always remove the driver and passenger seats along with the rear seats as well, because it gives you so much more room to operate and work on the vehicles, but also makes it that much easier to clean those cloth seats. But before you unplug any of the connectors on the seats, I always advise you to disconnect the battery and the power to the vehicle, so that way you don't have to worry about any fault lights. Now with everything unbolted, the front and the rear seats, it is time to remove the rear bench as the final seat remaining, and then you guys can tell how much dirt was actually underneath all of those seats that we would have never been able to get to if we did not remove them. And for the center console, I removed all of the different trim pieces inside and all the different rubber bottoms of all the different pockets. But to remove the actual whole center console, you had to remove a couple pins underneath it for the shifter to completely remove it, and that wasn't something I was prepared to do. But by loosening everything up, it gave me enough access to all of the carpet that had some staining on it on the left and right side. Now with all the seats removed, it is time to finally pull out the vacuum cleaner and get up all of that dust and dirt and all those debris that will get in the way from extracting the carpets. One thing I recommend for your vacuum is make sure you have several different types of attachments. I have one that is more of a widespread carpet kind of vacuum. I use no attachment, and then also I have a longer, thinner one that is used for more of getting into those different cracks and crevices. One additional tool that I can recommend is either having an attachment with a brush on it or having a separate handheld brush that you can use in parallel with the vacuum cleaner to remove any extra dirt that gets embedded. Now after I've done all the vacuuming, it's time to follow up with a lily brush, which I like to use this tool to remove any sort of dog hair or any sort of hair that gets embedded in those fibers out before we do the extraction process. And like I mentioned, you'll never know what you might find inside or underneath the seats of your car. And in this one in particular, I actually found a case with a Mario Luigi 3DS Nintendo game, and I went ahead and put it in the glove box for the owner to find that nice surprise. Now these brackets on the driver and passenger side are typically not found underneath most seats. This is the first vehicle that I've actually encountered with this sort of control modules. But as you guys can see, there is a lot of dirt and debris that had collected around those that needed to be removed, so that way we can clean up all of the dirt, but also extract those carpets in this area without damaging those control modules. One recommendation too, as you guys can see here, is to put all of the screws back in place where you found them on something that you might remove from the car. That way when you go back to reassembling, it makes it that much easier to remember where everything goes. Now with the vacuuming out of the way, it is time to jump straight into extracting all of the carpets inside the vehicle. And to use that, I'm actually using my new compounds that I've been using. They are dry powders that you mix with water. One is a pre-treatment that you let soak for 5 to 10 minutes. And then in my extractor, I actually have a post-treatment that helps with any additional staining that might be embedded that kind of lingers behind, but also helps with removing and balancing the pH out of the fabric from the pre-treatment. After I've let it soak for about 3 to 4 minutes, that is when I use my drill brush to agitate the fibers, get that liquid embedded even further, and get some of those stains loosened up before we follow in with our extractor. Now when it comes to extracting, whether you're using a smaller handheld unit or like one that I'm using here, I always recommend that you go back and forth with subsequent passes to not only inject more fluid into it before you extract it as well, but also it helps remove excess dirt that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Now because I'm using a post-treatment in my extractor fluid is not going to be coming out completely clear water. It is actually going to come out with some slight bubbling to it, but that is okay because the post-treatment is meant to stay in the carpet for deodorizing and also for balancing of the pH like I mentioned earlier. It might surprise you at how dark the extractor water was when you poured it out from the carpets that I was actually extracting, because they didn't look that dirty, but as you guys can see, the water literally looks like the darkest coffee that you can imagine. As I was extracting, you could definitely tell that there was some fluids and different things spilled that didn't quite show on the surface, but for some reason they were soaked underneath that when you extracted them. I was pulling out some of the nastiest water that I've pulled out before. Now when it came to the driver's side footwell, the floor itself had this plastic that was starting to peel back and starting to get eroded. I contemplated cutting some of it away that wasn't adhering to the carpet itself, but I decided to let the owner take care of that if he wanted to. I tried to clean underneath it as much as possible, so if he wanted to trim it back, it wasn't going to have some dark nasty spots underneath. And like I typically mention in all my videos, that if after you've done an extraction, or if you want to keep your carpets clean in general, all-weather floor mats or even just floor mats in general are a necessity when it comes to keeping your car clean, especially on the driver's side. For the driver floors as well, I did notice that the dark banding around the bottom underneath the pedals and on the right far side was actually not dirt. It was just being worn away because there wasn't floor mats in the car for a period of time, and it just had worn the fibers down to the base of the floor mat itself. Now with all the carpets inside drying, I'm going to jump into cleaning the seats, and the seats have oil stains on the bottom, they have oil stains on the headrest and the side bolsters, and some pretty interesting stains that I honestly wasn't sure if my new products were going to be able to get out, but I was actually really impressed, and you'll guys see how well that they were able to remove all of the stains. Now when it comes to using a drill brush on any sort of fabric, I actually had to Stick with my medium and soft drill brushes for several parts of this video, but one thing to remember is always work slowly, don't apply too much pressure or use too much speed, because the owner actually tried to remove a stain on the rear bench prior to me detailing it, and if you are too aggressive with a brush on fabric, especially on seats, you run the risk of messing it up and kind of causing some tearing and causing some frilling of the fibers. One of my favorite parts about using the drill brushes is as you're going through some of the dirtier sections, it literally just erases dirt from the fibers itself as you go with each pass. And it's probably one of the most satisfying parts of using the drill brush. This was probably the first detail I've done where the passenger seat was dirtier than the driver's seat. I'm not sure how that happened. The only thing I could think of was the pizzas or any sort of beverages or food that was being transported as a delivery driver was placed on the passenger seat, and that is why it got dirtier than the driver's seat. Now on the right side of the rear bench, you can see where the frilling happened, where the owner tried to clean it up a little bit himself. I wasn't able to get a few of the little red spots out because I didn't want to go too aggressive on this spot, just to be careful that I didn't rip it and damage the fibers further. So I tried to do a couple quick passes over it and get out most of that staining, but I also wanted to be gentle with it so I didn't cause any further damage. On the rear bench, I was most surprised with after I sprayed on my pre-treatment, it pulled a lot of staining from the front edge of the seat out, and you can see here how much stuff is being extracted from the seat using the slow motion camera. So now that the seats and the carpet is all done, it is time to use my all-purpose cleaner on the door panels, and I'm just spraying it on the fabric inserts, all of the stains on the panels themselves, and I'm using my bristle brush to just do circular motions to agitate it, to get into all of the different lines and crevices, and also the texture of the door panel itself, to get that dirt and everything cleaned. For the windows, I'm using invisible glass on the inside and the outside, because if you just clean the inside when you get in the car, the outside's still going to be dirty, so it doesn't look like a clean window. So I always do the outside and then also the top leading edge of the window itself. And for all of the plastic panels inside the vehicle after they've all been cleaned, I'm using Chemical Guys Silk Shine as a top coat to provide a UV protectant and also a nice finish. And when it comes to cleaning interior glass, the hardest and trickiest one is always typically the windshield itself, because you have to kind of twist your arm, lean backwards, or do the underhand reach to clean the windshield on that very top front edge. It's always tricky to get it completely clean, but if you kind of turn your arm upside down and reach back, it's really easy to get with your seats in your car. I was really happy with the end results, and so was the owner on how clean his car turned out. And also, if you guys know of anybody that has a absolutely filthy car, whether it's a friend or relative, I want you guys to reach out to me at thestauffergarage@gmail.com and send me some pictures or some leads of cars that are in like the Ohio area. And I want to say that no matter what kind of car you have, all cars need love. No matter what kind of brand it is, whether it's a Ferrari or it's a Chevy, it doesn't matter. All cars need to be cared for and taken care of, because after a detail, no matter what car it is, they all look amazing and put a smile on the owner's face, which is why I love doing what I do.
Holy moly. Wow. Man, this is amazing. I mean, this car went through a lot. Yeah, it's a pizza delivery car, you know. To see it in this condition is really awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you.